Hello everyone and welcome back to the finals of the AirThings Masters. It's round 2, or rather game 2 of the second match, game 6 in total, and well, we often say that game 6 has a very special way of making things interesting when it comes to, well, mostly when it comes to a World Chess Championship match, but this is also a very prestigious match, so game 6 is bound to deliver, and well, might have this time as well. So let's check it out. Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have e5 by Jan, and Magnus goes for bishop to c4, his famous bishop's opening, knight to f6, we have d3 and bishop to c5. And now, okay, knight to f3, we have d6, and now knight to c3, we have knight to c6. So all four knights have been developed, and we are now into the well-known areas of the gioco piano. So knight to a4, going after the bishop on c5, bishop to b6, and now knight captures on b6. So Magnus wins the bishop, a captures on b6, and now a4, grabbing more space here, not allowing black to play b5. And here there are some games that reach this position, but bishop to d7 by Nepo is a new move, so already as of move 8 we have a completely new game. Magnus continues developing, bishop to d2, we have castles by both players, castles, and now knight to e7. Standard gioco piano stuff, shifting the knight over to the king side. We want to play c6, maybe d5, or as it happened in this game, not c6, but rather c5 right away. But we're going to discuss this. We have b3 by Magnus, knight to g6, and now rook to e1. So all very nice developing moves. And now not going for c6, but rather c5. So instead of fighting for the center with c6 and d5, Nepo is fighting for the center by not allowing Magnus to fight for the center. So he has now complete control over the d4 square, and it's going to be very hard for Magnus to go for that c3 d4 idea. So here we have h3 by Magnus, taking away the g4 square from Jan's pieces, and the bishop to c6. We have b4 now, advancing the pawns on the queen side, and now Jan says, I'm done having this weak backwards pawn on d6, I will advance it all the way. So there are of course a couple of moves you could play. The a4 pawn, it does seem to be hanging, but this is of course why Magnus played it. He wants Jan to capture after rook captures, bishop captures. He wants to try and trap the bishop with b5, and now it's well, it's a very clunky looking bishop here. Maybe not the way to go, especially for a rapid game. If you have all the time in the world to calculate, like you do in a classical game, then maybe it's okay. So instead, after b4, Nepo strikes in the center with the d5. We have e captures on d5, bishop captures on d5. And now Magnus doesn't want to capture. Of course, you just develop Jan's pieces for free, bishop back to b5. So now you don't have to worry about bishop to c6 going after the a4 pawn, because if black goes after this, then what is your e5 pawn doing? That's not the way to go. So instead, Jan plays e4, very nicely played, and d captures on e4. We have knight captures on e4, and now b captures on c5. But before recapturing, we have this in between knight captures on d2. We have knight captures on d2 by Magnus, and now knight to f4. And now look at this. All of Nepo's pieces are now going after that g2 pawn. The queen is coming to g5, will join in the attack. Can Magnus survive this? Well, there are a couple of ways you could try and stop this. Knight to e4, for example, stops the attack on the g2 square, also takes care of the g5 square, but then maybe the queen can infiltrate this way. So Magnus decides it's best to just bring the bishop back to f1. It will be a very solid defender here, and now b captures on c5. You could also maybe try and bring the queen into the game right away, but everything gets solved with knight to f3, so you don't have to worry, as the bishop on f1 is a beautiful defender. So b captures on c5, recapturing material, and now knight to c4 by Magnus. We have queen to f6, bringing the queen into the attack. You always have to be careful. If the first rank clears, then that rook could be hanging on a1. So knight back to e3, attacking the bishop twice, and bishop back to c6. And now we have knight to g4, attacking Jan's queen here. Queen to g5. Now again, very careful you have to be. The knight, the queen, the bishop, everything is eyeing that the g2 pawn. And even if the knight moves, the knight captures an h3 check will be an idea. Of course, the g pawn is pinned. So here g3, attacking the knight, and the bishop covers the h3 pawn, so you don't have to worry about that. And here Jan makes a terrible mistake. Here you have to go back, knight to e6, and then we just trade everything off. For example, knight e5. We're going to play rook captures on a4, knight captures captures on c6, rook captures on a1, queen captures on a1, b captures on c6, and now let's say a nice centralizing queen to e5. And yes, black is up a pawn, but it's a double c pawn. So shouldn't be all that important. But instead, after g3, Nepo played rook 8 to d8, and this, well, simply will not do. It looks like there's quite a lot to worry about. We already discussed what a dangerous position it is, but what about the g captures on f4? How does Nepo react to this? Well, the fact of the matter is that he can't. So Magnus just plays g captures on f4, queen captures on f4, and now queen to e2. Now, it's important for the white queen to constantly keep an eye on the f3 square. If that black queen reaches that square, then how are you defending against queen to h1? So here, it would be great if you had this move, but you don't. There's a rook 8 to d1. And now if rook captures on e2, we're just going to capture on d8, and black gets checkmated. There's no way to stop this. So unfortunately, for Nepo, you can't kick away Carlsen's queen from d2 square. So we have rook d to e8 instead, not allowing this rook 8 to d1 trick, and now queen back to d3, just guarding the f3 square. We have h5. Nepo now goes for the attack. Now you're just you're lost, you're down a piece, but you have to now give it your all and try to do something here. So knight h2. We have rook to e5, hoping to get that rook to g5 check-in, but of course Magnus just trades. We have captures, and now c3, not allowing the rook to be captured. We have rook to e8 and the bishop to g2 now. The more pieces Magnus trades off, the quicker his victory will be here, as then of course it's just going to be an endgame where he's a piece up. So queen to g5, pinning the bishop, and now knight to f3, just attacking the queen to f4, and now rook to e1. Even this is in the position, and you could try not trading the rook, but then we just trade everything off with knight e5. And if bishop captures here, we're going to play king captures, and even if you deliver one check, king f1, there are no more checks, and of course we are completely winning here. So Nepo instead decides to trade and says, all right, I'm going to try and win this pawn, and then maybe try and create a passed b pawn. So that's also one idea. Knight captures on e1, we have queen captures on a4, and now bishop captures on c6. So Magnus successfully trades everything off. Queen captures, and now c4, not allowing Jan to push b5. G6, and now knight to g2. We have queen to f6. Jan wants to bring the queen to b2 and then try some b5 ideas. Magnus says, not a problem. He plays queen e4, another nice centralizing move, attacking the b7 pawn. Queen to a1 check, we have king h2, now queen to b2 guarding the pawn, but Magnus just plays king to g3. And here, Magnus is already planning an invasion because this king wants to come all the way to h6, and then it's going to be not so much fun. And there's not much black can do about this. If, for example, the king is on h6, the pawn is on f4, there's just no way to harass that white king. It's going to be a very safe square. So here, king g7. The thing is, you have to play king g7. If you start with b5, this will kind of create a pass pawn, but not really, because queen e8 check, and you blunder that pawn. So instead, after king g3, king g7 first, and now knight to e3. We have b5. Now Jan gets his pass pawn. C captures on b5, and queen captures on b5. But now you've left this diagonal, so Magnus, of course, puts his queen on this diagonal. Queen e5 check. King to g8, and now knight d5, preparing some very nasty checkmating ideas. Queen to d3 check, and now Magnus marches forward. King to h4. Now king g5, king h6 is coming, and hopefully checkmate as well. So Jan will try everything to stop this. He plays queen to d2, takes away the g5 square from the white king. Imagine this, preventing your opponent from bringing your his own king all the way in your base. That's something else. So here f4, Magnus clears the path for the white king. Now queen to g2, not allowing again the king to cross, but now there's just knight to f6 check, and black is lost regardless of what black does. So Nepo plays king to f8, but this is just the quickest way for Magnus to win, and he does. It's actually a forced checkmate in 5 moves. Knight d7 check, king to g8, we have queen to e8 check, king g7, queen to f8 check, and it was in this position on move 50 that Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned the game, and game 6 yet again goes to Magnus Carlsen, well, as it seems, game 6 always delivers regardless of the match. So we'll see if Nepo will be able to bounce back, but it was really, really intense. All the 5 games were such incredible fighting chess. At some point, someone had to win. And in this game, it was Magnus, as Nepo just gave up a piece for apparently no reason. But yeah, here he resigned because after king to h7, it's mate on the next move. Knight to f6 will be checkmate, and of course, that's why he resigned. So yeah, that's the game. Game 6 of this incredible match, or rather game 2 of the second day. Magnus takes the win. I would like to thank Cypher Kicks, Leo Joel Bourne, James O'Toole, John Cousins, and Nikita Nicholas for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this incredible match until it ends. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.